so let's unpack this. If reincarnation is like recasting a beloved character with a completely different actor, in a new costume, then today's text argues resurrection is the original actor stepping back onto the stage in the exact same role.
Yeah, that actor analogy really perfectly captures the immovable line drawn in today's source material. We're looking at an excerpt from the March 22nd devotional, Rhapsody of Realities by Pastor Chris, and our mission today is to basically explore how this text builds a really firm theological wall between those two concepts. And the author sets up a very clear binary framework right off the bat. Reincarnation, which is the idea of a soul returning in another body, is labeled a false doctrine, a complete lie.
Wow, they really don't mince words.
No, not at all. Conversely, Christianity's entire validity is presented as resting completely on resurrection.
Meaning coming back to life as the exact same person by God's power. It's not just a nice story, it's the foundational evidence of Jesus's divinity, right?
Yes, exactly. The text actually leans on early Christian writings, specifically Romans chapter 1, verse 4, to argue that his resurrection was the ultimate proof he was the Son of God.
Oh.
And then it brings in Hebrews 13:8, which emphasizes that he remains the exact same person yesterday, today, and forever.
Okay, so that continuity of identity is the crux of the whole argument here.
Right, because the text uses scripture to show that resurrection proves Jesus is the appointed judge. It cites Acts 17:31 for that specific point.
Ah, okay, so the judgment aspect is key.
Yeah, I mean, if human identity didn't remain intact, like if people just kept cycling through different lives and bodies, the concept of facing a final appointed judgment wouldn't make any logical sense.
I mean, that makes sense. You can't really hold someone accountable if they aren't the same person who actually committed the act.
Precisely. You need the original actor on stage to answer for the performance.
But here's where it gets really interesting, though. That logic tracks for the judgment argument, but I have a bit of a hang-up here.
Okay, what's the hang-up?
Well, if the rule is strictly one identity per person, how does the text explain those famous biblical figures who seemingly do return from the past? Jesus himself referred to John the Baptist as Elijah. On paper, that sounds exactly like reincarnation.
It really does sound like it, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But the text clarifies that Jesus didn't mean Elijah's soul was recycled into John's body.
Oh, okay. Then what did he actually mean?
Well, looking at Luke chapter 1, the text argues John simply operated in the power and spirit of Elijah. So he carried the same prophetic weight and style, but he was a completely distinct individual.
So more of a spiritual successor rather than a literal rebirth.
Right, exactly.
But if John was just a successor, what about the original Elijah? How does the author reconcile that without calling it reincarnation?
By pointing out a major technicality in his departure. According to 2 Kings chapter 2, Elijah never actually died. He was taken alive to heaven.
Wait, really? So he just bypassed death entirely?
Exactly. So the argument is that if he appears again, he isn't being reincarnated. It's just the original guy stepping back onto the stage, manifesting again according to a divine timeline.
All right, I buy that loophole for someone who never died. But Moses definitely died.
Yes, he did.
Deuteronomy 34 explicitly says God buried him. Yet centuries later, he allegedly shows up on the Mount of Transfiguration talking with Jesus in Matthew 17. If a dead guy comes back in a physical form, how is that not the textbook definition of reincarnation?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the text uses that exact appearance of Moses to define the underlying mechanics of resurrection.
Okay, break that down for me because I'm curious.
When Moses showed up, it wasn't his old soul stuffed into a new random baby's body. The text describes him as returning in a glorified, transfigured body.
Transfigured, that's a pretty heavy theological term. What does that actually mean in this context?
Essentially, it means an elevated, perfected state of physical existence. It's not a brand new avatar, and it's not a recycled soul.
Right.
It's the resurrection power of God taking the original identity and upgrading the hardware, so to speak, into a state of permanent glory.
So if you're looking at your own life through this framework, resurrection ensures that you retain your exact original identity.
Yes, because that identity is fundamentally tied to facing God's appointed judgment as you. That continuous thread of self is the core of the message.
Which leaves me with a rather provocative final thought for you listening to mull over today. If resurrection emphasizes keeping our exact original identity forever, but doing so in a newly upgraded, glorified, transfigured body, how does that change how we define what our true self actually is?
Oh, wow. That is a deep philosophical question.
Right. If you step back onto the stage as the original actor, but you've been entirely transfigured, or you're still playing the exact same role. Something to think about.
That's your call to action. You can find more information on this source material, The Rhapsody of Realities by Pastor Chris, on their website, www.rhapsodyofrealities.org.
We'll catch you next time.
We trust you were blessed by this episode. To gain unlimited access to Rhapsody of Realities by Pastor Chris, please download the Rhapsody app using the link myapp.rhapsodyofrealities.org. God bless you.